Alright guys, so we're back for this part 2 of this live play review. So let's get into the action. So I think we opened ace 8 off, gets folded, I assume. Yes. And then we're going to be opening king jack off from middle position. And then I think that's the guy, right? I'm not sure. I don't see the screen names. So small blind, okay, small blind cold calls, who's a recreational. Again, like on this very dry texture, I wouldn't mind just betting small, very high frequency, just because it's so dry. Again, like I would tend to size up just a bit, just because like I don't want to make him call a hand like fours. So like with this specific hand, I would probably be betting something like 1/3 pot. And then if I had a hand like ace 5 or nines, I would probably be betting nines as well, because I really like the board is so dry that I can just overbet big on the turn once he calls. Uber fish. All right. So here, once he calls, I'm just gonna be like, we're just gonna be checking. We're gonna have like much better hands to be bluffing. Having a spade is pretty nice, just because like he's gonna call it like some hands with backdoor flush draw, but again, he's a recreational, right? Like the other guy had king 5 offsuit, so like we don't have to think really like on that level. Like he calls, we have some showdown value. He's gonna let us realize a bit too much equity, so just checking down is fine. And then here we're happy. I mean, we could use a really small bet size as a value bet. I think that's fine, but also checking is fine. We'll probably bet something like, yeah, something like this is totally fine. I like it. I do like it. Against the 3x open, I mean, his range should be a bit stronger. He seems to be playing VPIP 15, but I mean it's 34 hands. I mean this hand is a clear 3-bet, so we're gonna be 3-betting hopefully to 9 big blinds. That's fine. 9.3 bigs. And then against a 4-bet in this position, I would just fold it. Yeah, it's like if you look at like solvers and stuff, like this would potentially be a hand that's always gonna be calling, but like he should be like 4-betting sometimes hand like ace queen off as a bluff, you know. So but is he really gonna do that at 10 NL? I'm not sure. But again, like those kind of hands are like in these positions. Like if I were in other position like small blind, big blind, it's a pretty easy snap call. But like in these positions, we have to be careful. So I think that it looks pretty. But I mean, we have also some reverse implied odds where like he's gonna have hands like ace king a bit, and even if he starts like bluffing hands like ace queen off, it's kind of bad. So I would just like in this position, I would just fold it. Then he bets half pot. I mean, it's not great. I mean, like now we call the 4-bet. I think that we cannot go nowhere on the flop. Also, the fact that he bet bigger is not that particularly thrilling. I mean, it could mean two things. It could mean one, that he has a strong hand, right? And he thinks that the board is pretty drivey and he wants to be putting in money, or he wants you to be folding and doesn't like, maybe has a hand like queens or a bluff. But the thing is that like even like his bluffs gets there, you know, like hands like ace king or ace queen that he 4-bet on the pre-flop. Now I don't think we can never fold the flop. We call the 4-bet here. We're not thrilled about life. And then he's probably going to be jamming turn, and then we're kind of in a really tough situation. Hopefully he checks, which is great. We could do two things. I mean, this is the kind of SPR where we can definitely be just checking back here. I mean, like, the thing is that, like, for him to have a flush draw, like, he needs to 4-bet hands like king, jack, king, queen suited, which he should do in this position, of course. But I don't think people at 10 NL Zoom are actually doing that. So he doesn't have that many flushes. So we don't need to be worried at all about river flush. And also, like, when we are ahead, we are way ahead. And then when we are behind, we are way behind. So just checking turn to, if I check the turn, he checks the river, I'm jamming the river. And if he actually jams the river, it's really gross, but we'll see. I like the check. And then the queen, that's a pretty bad river, because he's always going to play hands like queens like this. I mean, maybe they call the pre-flop 3-bets because they're a bit needier sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's not a great river. If he actually jams here, I would be really worried, just because in his highs, ace queen gets there as well. So, like, not even ace king is good anymore, because we improved to ace queen. But yeah, let's see how the action unfolds. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is pretty gross. This is this is a line that's typically under bluff. So the bet check bet line, you know, like if he had, let's say, a hand like king jack a spade on the turn, right? Is he really, like, not jamming the turn to be bluffing that run out? Like, I don't really think so. I think, like, if he has a bluff, which I don't think he has that often given the positions, and also the fact that he's probably not 4-betting the range that he should be 4-betting in the first place. That means that on this particular board, he lacks bluffs. He would need to be turning a hand like potentially like jacks into a bluff that he 4-bets sometimes, which I'm not even sure he does. Or hands like king jack suited. But yeah, again, like, it's hard for him to find bluffs. These can have value. Also, it's a line that is typically under bluff. I mean, we'll see what he's gonna have, because he has the button on click call. Of course, he can show up with a random spaz, but all in all, in general, given the positions, given the line and all that, given the flop sizing, I think he's generally strong. We'll see how that goes. Maybe he has like king 4 suited, but we'll see in 1 second. He has 10s. That's pretty nice. So again, like e4 bet a hand that's typically a call. You know, it's a very low frequency 4-bet that makes, I mean, the call really nice on the river. I don't think I would have folded anyway to the river bet as well. I wanted to say that before, but again, like, now that we saw that he can have these type of hands, I mean, now I think it's a much clearer call, in the sense that, like, if he's really tight, you know, and he's mostly calling hands like 10s and jacks, then that means that his bluffing range will definitely be those hands, which in a sense, I think his bluff is fine. You know, like, he cannot really have a worse hand than that. Maybe a hand like king jack suited and all, but yeah. I would have potentially folded to the 4-bet, like I said, like I mentioned. I would have potentially given the position and all that. But again, like, we saw that he can be actually 4-betting pretty wide there, which I think, like, even hands like 10s in this position is a like, is not that high frequency 4-bet given the positions. But all in all, we cannot really fold on the river, given the fact that, I mean, we have top pair. What else? Like, we're only going to call hands like, we're going to have also some ace king. We're going to have some ace queens as well. Pretty tough spot all in all. We just saw that he reloaded to like only 100 big blinds. Maybe he feels more comfortable. Maybe he feels more comfortable playing 100, which I think is totally fine. If you feel that you're a lot less confident about your game when you're 200 deep, you're not really sure. The 4-betting stuff is a bit more awkward, right? Because now you cannot just get it in and that much easily pre-flop with certain hands. It's much tougher to play and all that. I think it's a fine strategy there. The only time I would stick with having a lot of like keeping a really big stack is that if there's like a uber fish or like a really big fish in the pool that's also deep. So that's when I would start like if I would not be comfortable playing deep, that's when I would start keeping my stack and not reloading to 100. So here, I mean, I don't really see the stats, but yeah, so out of position, I would usually isolate a bit bigger. I would probably go something like 5x, 5.5. I think 4.5 is fine. So let's take a look at the ace queen off hands, and then we can take a look at this hand. Board where it's very connected. Can we get rid of him easily? I mean, he's gonna have a lot of stuff that connects with that. Of course, he's gonna have hands that has an easy fold, like hands like ace deuce or like pocket deuces, for example. But it's just not a spot where we can get rid of him easily. So I would definitely have a checking range. This hand we have a double gutter plus 2 overs. We could do both, to be honest. We could check, we could bet. I kind of like checking, and then I would always gonna be like I would mostly be check calling with this. I think also sizing up slightly, maybe like 50 to like 60% pot is fine, like you just did. I think that's fine, and then we can either check or bet. And then Jack-10 suited, there were a limp, small blind limped, and then we ISO'd to 4.5 big blinds. Now there's another extra like big blind here, so I would actually raise a bit bigger just because there's this extra guy in there. Now we had this guy who was only limper, if I remember correctly, and we opened and we ISO to 4.5. Now there's an extra player here, so I would just go something like maybe 5.5 or maybe 6 big blinds. Okay, so now we are 3-way and we're out of position. This guy's most likely a recreational, so we're not really going to be making quite a bit of money here against this guy. The thing is that in general, when like a general rule of thumb is that when we are out of position, we want to be doing more checking. Also, the more players that are in the pot, the more we want to be checking as well. Just because, I mean, now the equities are split 3-way. So, I mean, you're now facing 2 ranges instead of 1, which is not great. Plus the fact that we are out of position, which is also not great. So we have to be a bit more careful. On the other hand, I think we can still have a betting range here. This hand needs a lot of protection. We have top pair, we have backdoor flush draw. I wouldn't mind just betting small here. And then looking to check some turns as well. But yeah, I do like the fact that he's betting. I mean, going small, usually when you're multi-way, I think is fine. I mean, the thing is that like your sizing is going to be a bit face up versus him, because now you actually ISO'd both of them, right? And I'm not sure if yellow is like a reg or something, but the thing is that like if he's like, I mean, if he knows a bit like about this and about poker, he should know that you ISOing first of all against 2 players, your range is going to be your range is going to be stronger. But also the fact that you c-bet into 2 players, that's going to dictate also some strength. So once he actually do call, I don't think he's going to be floating hands like ace-10 suited, for example, or ace-9 suited, for example. So I think checking the turn is totally fine here. We don't need protection. I mean, we have a strong, like, we have a pretty solid top pair. This is one of, like, not a great river. Maybe you can have a hand like ace-5 or ace-deuce suited, which has a gut shot on the flop. But he checks again. So now, I mean, we're quite happy just checking it down against like 7s or 6s or even another jack. King jack suited. I mean, this is definitely a hand he should be ISOing this guy. Like, just maybe I didn't see and he did ISO. Let me just go back. Sorry about that. No, so he actually limped. So I think that's a big mistake by him. All right, so let's continue. This hand is going to be in open or a 3-bet. Deuce-9 suited, very close, bottom of our calling range if we do want to defend. Given its high rake environment, I would lean towards folding. I like the 3-bet here. I mean, also, like, this is what's great about poker is that sometimes you have like some assumptions, that like you have some population tendencies and all that, but you end up in a spot where like he shows up something that you were not really thinking about and all that. And I think that's what's really interesting about all of this. You know, like those games, you see different player types, you have to adjust to the best of your ability. You have to try to make the best assumptions on the spot, on the fly. Are you always going to be right? The answer is no. But what you need to do is try to be confident into your game plan and approach each day the same way, basically. So 6-8 offsuit, we're always going to be folding and always going to be not playing. We're gonna 3-betting here is totally fine. Folding is also fine. I think it's like one of those borderline 3-bets. If you see that villain is on the tighter side, you can just fold. If he's opening a bit more looser, we can start 3-betting. I think this one likes right on the cusp. A hand like this, we're mostly going to be calling. We can like also sometimes very low frequency 3-bet this against the button. But again, it's really, really low frequency. It's hard to see with like his HUD and all because I'm not used to it. So the small blind cold call, again, like we talked about it, like we see this happening all the time. The board is very dry. I would just c-bet like, I mean, he's going to have a bunch of pocket pairs, but again, he's also going to have some ace-high, and just betting small I think is fine because we also get plenty of value against other stuff as well. Now he bets 32%, which I'm not really sure why. Now he goes 32 and the other one he went 22. So here, I mean, we have to think about a couple things, right? Like, so he's going to be checking. We cannot just blindly bet every draw we have here. So a hand like ace queen off, yes, we do have a gut shot to basically the nuts, but like we have other stuff to actually be betting. We're gonna have hands like ace 10 off, right? We're gonna have hands like 9-10 off, 9-10 suited. We're gonna have hands like queen 10. So we're gonna have like a lot of stuff that we can actually barrel, right? And also like maybe other junk that we want to be betting that has less showdown value than a hand like this. So this particular hand, I mean, on the turn, I would mostly check just because we have some showdown value. We don't want to be betting all of our gut shots or all of our draws. So starting to check the ones with the highest showdown value, I think makes sense. And we can start betting more like queen 10, ace 10, 9-10 type of stuff. So yeah, so let's see what he does. He checks, I like it. And then against a bet, I think it's just going to be a fold. And then let's take a look into the ace queen suited. He opens 3.2x from the small blind, 8-5-4 suited, very bad board for us. He's gonna have hands like 6-7 off, 5-4 off, 8-5 suited, 8-4 suited, that type of stuff that really connects with this board, which we won't have. Like we're definitely not opening 6-7 off, 5-4 off. We might open 8-5 suited, but even then it's pretty loose. Or like even hands like 8-4 suited, we're not opening that type of stuff. So all in all, it's a board that really favors big blinds. So just checking your entire range here makes quite a bit of sense. And then checking this end makes a lot of sense as well. If he were to bet on the flop, sorry guys, I just need some water. If he were to bet on the flop, this would not be a hand that I would tend to check raise, just because like we're gonna have to check raise some flush draws and we're gonna have to check call some flush draws, for example. So I would try to pick my highest showdown value ones like this, like ace king, ace queen, right? As check call, just because we can easily check call the flop, check call the turn, right? Like pretty much any turn. I mean, depending on the sizing, if he goes like 3x spot or something, no. But again, like any regular or standard sizing. Now, I would try to check raise like hands like ace 7, ace 9, that connects a bit more with that, where I can pick up some added equity, or hands like king 6, that type of stuff. So a bit less showdown value, a bit more turn equity we can have, right? As well as having like a strong flush draw. I think those are the type of hands that we want to be building a pot. I mean, would the solver check raise ace king of diamonds sometimes? Potentially, yes. But mostly like I'm trying to play a good solid strategy. And mostly what I would do is I would potentially just, not potentially, but I would mostly check call these type of holdings and check raise a hand like ace deuce or ace 3, you know, where we have less showdown value than ace king, but we still have like ace high flush draw, and we also have like added equity. On this turn, we can do two things. I mean, we could do some blocks, we can do some big betting. Those are the type of turns where it's actually splitting pretty evenly between blocks and big sizes. If you think about it, I mean, you have plenty of hands that wants to go big, like sets, straights, even hands like king, queen plus wants to go big. But you also have plenty of hands that wants to go for value, right? Like if you have 7s, 8x, even a hand like ace 5 type of stuff. Once he checks back, I mean, those feel pretty good. He's going to have some queen x. But when it goes check, check and the turn is high, those are the type of spot where it usually, and I mean usually, uses like a small and a big bet. If you don't want, like, of course, like I suggest that you don't split your range here. Then what I would say is that I would try to pick only the bigger size, just because the fact that the flop went check through and the pot is small And if you have a strong hand, you want to be building the pot now. So just polarizing yourself to something like queen jack or king queen plus, and then using like an overbet, I think is a fine strategy here. You could also use another strategy where you bet like something more medium, right? You bet like 3/4 spot, and you still bet like, or 2/3 spot, and you still bet like 8x, 9s, 10s, jacks, weak queen x, maybe even a hand like 7 sometimes. And then on the river, that's where you use like some really big sizes and some medium size. I think both strategies are okay, but if I were to choose only one, I would probably just use the one with the bigger bet size. So this particular hand, I would just like checking. I mean, we have some showdown value against his better, like his other ace size. We could also just be betting small, like for value on the turn. Like in those situations, like these type of hands are like sometimes getting bet small as well, just because like they're gonna get called by like worse hands as well. So you probably had a hand like ace 10 or ace deuce type of stuff. Ace 8 suited, I mean, we see that he limps. Again, I would take a look into his stats. We only have 5 hands, so I wouldn't go crazy. The thing is, like, I don't see the screen names, so sometimes I don't like that, to be honest, because I personally remember screen names a bit better, you know. So if I see like a really huge whale or something, then I mean, I remember his screen name, and it's much easier to see. But again, like, everybody's different. He's probably used to his stuff right now. So what I would do is I would probably move this line here, like towards the cards, because we don't really need to see the cards. And then I would see the screen name. But again, like, everybody's different. Or just move this under here or something like that, where it doesn't really bother anything. So here we call, we just checked. I think checking is fine. Raising is fine. Both options are fine. On the turn, once it goes check, check, I wouldn't mind just betting a sizing like half pot, just because, I mean, our hand is most likely good, or denying some equity for a hand like king 4 suited type of stuff. Then mucks. Okay, I'm not really sure what he had. So this guy limps, he ISO'd 45, 4.5 bigs, equal call 4.5. Ace 10 off, it's a bit too weak. Like, we can attack this because I assume, the thing is that, like, he's 40 bigs, so it's not like he's gonna be going super crazy. But again, like, people ISO pretty wide here, and then his range is super face up, so it's pretty much dead money by him here. Like, if he really had a really strong hand, he probably would have 3-bet here. But this hand is just a bit too weak to just be squeezing. Because we also have to worry about him rejamming or him. This guy, I wouldn't really bother, because I think his range is the weakest by far. I mean, this guy also, because he limps, right? But I mean, this guy can also limp some strong hands. I don't think calling here with a hand like aces makes a lot of sense here. Because what happens is that he's got, like, what happens is that you cold call the 4.5 bigs. I could do, I mean, you're happy if I squeeze, but like, what happens is that when he calls, you're now out of position, 3-way in like a pot. So it's not like the best situation. So I would rather just 3-bet myself, you know, and hopefully just jams it in, or this guy spaz or something like that. Like, just being out of position, especially like multi-way, like, just sucks. We open ace 5 suited. Very pretty. And so this guy 3-bets on the smaller side. It's always going to be a call here. If you 3-bet like to a standard size, maybe like 10.5 or 11 big blinds or something like that, it's a bit closer. But against the smaller size, I think is fine. It's a fine call. Like those ace 5, ace 4, like we could call. Again, if it's super tight, I mean, we could start making adjustments, but we have to take a look. Like if he made it 11 bigs, okay, but he made it like 7.9 bigs, so like from 2.3 to 7.9, which I think is a bit small. So we have to like not drastically open up our calling range, but we have to slightly adjust our calling range. King Queen off, standard open. Pretty interesting session so far. We're probably gonna split that in 2 sessions, so part 1 and part 2. Ace 10 off, too weak to 3-bet. He opens 3x2. Jack 10 off, middle position. We're gonna be folding. King deuce off. We're not gonna defend as well. Same thing with Queen deuce off. Sevens, I mean, it's very close, very, very close. When he cold calls, I mean, this is a really interesting spot. Let me just think about it. I mean, squeezing is not, like I would probably squeeze 8s plus here. Like 7s is right on the cusp. I don't mind both. Like if he didn't call, I wouldn't mind just, like if a middle position didn't call, like I would just fold. Now that he cold called, I don't mind both option of calling. And then if villain like is opening a bit wider from under the gun, I don't mind squeezing as well, and I don't mind folding as well too. I think like in some situations, I think like all options are like viable. So I don't have a strong opinion personally here. I don't mind the call. Yeah, I think that's that is a bit aggressive, just because I mean you are facing 3 players, so you are facing 3 ranges. Like, do you really expect somebody folding like a hand like King Jack here, like King Jack suited? Like I don't think so. He has like a gut shot to overs, that type of stuff. So like you're gonna have like if you're betting here, I hope his plan was to bet turn and river and start to like turn this hand into multi-street bluff. Because if you're just betting the flop hoping to get folds, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen. Of course, now he's gonna be betting and everybody's gonna be snap folding. But what I say is that now we are facing, like if it were 3-way, okay, fine. But now it's actually 4-way. Of course, you kind of send a signal of a lot of strength here, but again, you're facing like 3 other players. Plus, you have pretty bad equity versus their calling range. But amazing because it went true. So Jack 7-5, we opened. I don't think it's a board where again we can just do like full range c betting. Out of position, we always have to be doing a lot more checking. This particular hand, we have second pair, decent kicker. We don't have backdoor flush draw. I think it's like a pretty 100% hand to check call. Then I expect this to go like check quite a lot, but he bets this is again this is like the type of this is the type of hand that's, so let me just rephrase it. This is the type of stuff that you see quite a bit at micros, where you see sizings that doesn't really make sense. Like his sizing pretty much indicates I have a pretty good hand, but not great hand. So he's betting the turn, looking to check back the river. Maybe he has a hand like ace deuce. Maybe he has a hand like jack X. Potentially can even have a bluff, and he's like, oh, I don't want to be betting big because I'm bluffing, and I make my bluff a bit cheaper. But all in all, these type of hands signals quite a lot of medium strength hand. So what we have to do, we have to overfold a bit our bluff catchers against these type of sizings, and we can start attacking them as well a bit more. Not crazy, but we can start attacking them. I don't think, I think calling is fine. Having the queen is pretty nice because we unblock all of the 9-10, 8-10, 9-6 type of stuff. We unblock a lot of stuff that he can bluff that was already there on the flop. Now, if he actually bets the river again, I mean, it's a pretty easy fold. Even if he was bluffing with a hand like 9-10 or 10-8 type of stuff, it's actually getting there. And he actually was bluffing. Not sure what did he have. Queen 9 suited. Okay. So again, he made a pretty face up size in the sense that I mean, he had a flush draw. But those are the type of stuff where I mean, you also realize more equity. Like I talked about, people will not be putting you to the test. So I mean, with this hand, like I mentioned, I think it's a call. But what I want to say is that you're going to also realize more equity with a big part of your ranges, because people will be betting turn and then giving up river, and then you just get to showdown a bit more easily. So we can be a bit more deliberate with our turn calls, where if it's very close, we can call in the sense that people will not be bluffing at the right frequencies on rivers. So basically we get to realize more of our equity. Here on the flop, pre-flop, sorry, we are facing 3x. 9-10 off is going to be a hand that we can 3-bet about half the time, or even a bit less than that. But it's definitely a hand that we're going to be mixing as a call and a 3-bet. So those 9x offsuit, like jack 9 off, 9-10 off, 9-7 off, 9-8 off, that those type of stuff are always getting 3-bet at some frequency. But he called. I think that's fine. He looked at 3-betting. I think both options are fine. Okay, so we could do two things here. I mean, I saw that he was thinking about raising. Usually what you do, or how we should be approaching what type of hands we want to be raising, it's usually I talked a bit earlier in the video, where we usually want to be raising our best kickers. So hands like ace 9, king 9, queen 9, we can raise a bit more frequently, right? And then the middling ones mostly get checked, they mostly get called, and then we can start raising worse ones, hands like 9-5 suited, you know, that we're just raising the flop and then we're checking back any turn pretty much. So usually the middling ones mostly get checked, mostly get called, and then the higher ones obviously gets raised, and then the worst ones also get raised sometimes. I wouldn't raise all of my worst ones, but it's sometimes a nice play that you can just raise a hand like 9-5 suited and then just check back. And pretty much like all turns, you're just checking back. So here I wouldn't have chose this particular hand. And then like here, I mean, pretty nice hand to just be checking back the turn. I mean, you could also exploitatively just bet the turn, check back the river as well. I think that's fine as well. Now he bets very big, so he bets close to pot. Like those big sizings, I mean, the thing is that like we're gonna have some ace-x that we raise the flop, check the turn with. Let me just think about it. I mean, the thing is that like he makes it pot, right? Like we have to take a look, pay attention to timing tells, guys, pay attention to sizings. This is super important. I would probably end up folding here. You can rub this hand pretty well too. All right, let's just take a look at one last hand and we can wrap things up. Very interesting session so far. I think he played pretty solidly. Okay, so let's take a look at this ace queen off hands and then we can wrap it up. Yeah, I think that's a bit too weak to be checking here. A bit too passive, if you want to put it this way. I mean, we have top pair, top kicker. We can sometimes check, but again, like equal calls from the small blind, so he's most likely a recreational. I would just bet myself. And also three-way on a very connected board. I mean, we don't need to be betting big just because we want to control the size of the pot a bit more. And but yeah, like with the ace of heart betting a bit more, since we have a bit more equity, is totally fine. Not having the ace of heart, then we could potentially start checking a bit more. Again, that hand I would most likely bet, but we end up checking. Don't try to be too balanced, guys. Like in these stakes, people will not, first of all, notice, and just go for max value when you have the chance. Don't try to be tricky. Don't try to be having like a very complicated strategy against people that just doesn't know what to do against your strategy. Hopefully we bet now. So again, like this is exactly what I said earlier, right? Exactly. So we check back the flop. What does our range contain? Like mostly medium strength hand. So like we're basically repping this hand or a hand like threes basically, but like we still want to be betting hands like ace 10, king 10, queen jack, queen 8, right? That type of stuff. So those hands really want to be betting medium strength hand, and we're really face up with our sizing to pocket threes and then a slow play like top pair, top kicker hand like this. So this sizing doesn't really make sense with our overall betting range. The thing is that like if he would tell me like, hey man, I'm doing that because I'm using an exploitative strategy, then I would say you should have bet the flop, you know, because if you're trying to exploit somebody because he's too weak, then just bet your top pair, top kicker with the nut backdoor flush draw to get value on the flop, and then bet the turn here, and then you can just check back on the bad river and then you win a nice spot. But again, I don't think this sizing makes a whole lot of sense. You should just be betting something like 50, like 5 big blinds, 50 cents or something like that. And then if the river is like another 3 of club, for example, then of course we can definitely use an overbet strategy on the river. But now on the turn, I think, yeah, I don't think it's the right size here. And then he calls. I mean, he just check calls the overbet here. I mean, like he most likely has a hand like a jack or like a second pair type of hand or like a backdoor flush draw type of hand. If he actually raised here, and I'm pretty sick because I actually called the 3 of clubs here, like, what the hell? Like to be, this is pretty funny. Like we check back the flop, we delay overbet turn, and he calls, and this guy calls. I mean, one of them had like, they have like either like a hand like Jack 10, right? High equity stuff, like backdoor flush draw type of stuff and all that. So like on that brick river, we block ace 3 of clubs, right? Not ace 3 of club, but ace 3 of hearts, which is like really, really important. I would use a really big bet here. Like we're always pretty much we're ahead pretty much always. But I still want to get called, so I wouldn't go crazy. If, let's say, we were only against this guy, I would probably overbet that river. But since we're against 2 players, I would bet something like 235. $230 is pretty, $240 is pretty close, like the sizing. And then they both folded. So they probably had both flush draws or a hand like Jack 10 that has pretty high equity. So yeah, so all in all, I think Edwin played pretty solidly. We saw in a couple spots where he could have potentially bet some turns, be a bit more aggressive and all that. But all in all, I think he has a pretty solid strategy. Thanks a lot for sharing your footage. I was super happy to review it. So if you guys have any questions about this video, just hit me up in the forum. I'll be more than happy to take a look over your questions and all that. Other than that, I'm gonna wish you guys luck